Welcome. Before we begin, please be aware that our discussions on mental health issues may include sensitive topics and situations that could be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised, and if you find these subjects distressing, we encourage you to seek support or skip episodes that may be uncomfortable for you. Your well-being is important to us. Welcome to Healing Echoes, Rebuilding Life After Trauma and Abuse. Today we have with us Sharon Narvaez. Sharon is a passionate transformational career coach dedicated to helping individuals find their calling and create purpose in their lives and careers. With her expertise in leadership and self-development, she guides clients from diverse backgrounds to uncover their unique strengths, passions, and values. Together, she helps you create a roadmap to a fulfilling and purposeful life. If you're feeling stuck or seeking clarity in your career or personal journey, she offers a holistic and client-centered approach. Through powerful questioning and proven coaching techniques, she supports you in aligning your actions with your true purpose. Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Katelyn, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. So I just kind of wanted to start the conversation with you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about you personally and professionally.
Sure. Well, I think your intro was great. It covered a lot of what I currently do. So I'm a transformational career coach. And what I really focus in on is those people who are disconnected, lost, and either very underwhelmed or overwhelmed with that disconnect and that feeling of being lost in not only their careers, but in their calling and therefore in life. And so how we come together is by creating an agenda that's going to help us not only in the discovery of where you're sensing life calling you, but then come together to make that practical. So we take the deep meaning, the definition of where life is calling you, and then we start creating practices that are tangible, are embodied in an action plan, but they're really to create purpose around your calling. And so that's where career or business kind of comes together. And, it's amazing to see people really not just find something, right? The agenda is not the career, but really get in touch with their calling and discover who they are throughout this process. I think that's one of the most gratifying things when people go, oh, these are my giftings, and this is who I've always been. And it is possible for me to live in that authenticity. And I don't have to do it alone. I have a coach that's experienced this for herself and has both, the emotional capacity, the personal experience, but also techniques that she's been trained on to take me along this journey. And so when I invite people to work on this together, they're the ones at the driver's seat. I am in the passenger seat, facilitating a safe space for them and helping you with the GPS so that we don't get so lost in all the voices that we're constantly hearing when we're trying to really hear ours. And that's super important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is like a really important aspect, is because it's not just career coaching or business coaching. It is really tapping into them finding their passion and like coming into an alignment with who they really are. I love that aspect.
Yes, just really, for me, I wish that I would have had someone like me a couple years ago. I think that my process, and like a lot of people will say like, oh, don't live in regret, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying when I said I wish I had. But listen, the reality is that a lot of things could have made my journey easier.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't always have to be that hard. And I think this is where the healers of the world come in, right? Because in a sense, this is not just career, this is also a healing journey, and it is a self-discovering journey, and it is a self-care journey, because it has everything to do with you. And not all my clients are like, oh, I have this like big calling career thing that I'm going to do. Some of them are, it's just that I feel called to do this, and I need a career that works for me rather than the other way around, because my calling is with my family, or my calling is with this nonprofit, whatever that is. And so how do we align all those things that help you live in your calling and whatever it is that means? And also, how do you transition into the changes of what that also means? Because we're called to do something that may evolve throughout our lifetime. And so that's the other aspect of walking together in this. And so it could be a journey of just a few weeks, or it could be a journey of years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I love
and
that.
that's okay.
Yeah. Kind of a person to person basis, depending on what they need. Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So I know when we had talked before, one of the things we kind of focused on was like shame in the healing process when survivors are trying to heal. So I wanted to ask you to share some examples from your experience or research on how shame can hinder the healing process for survivors of trauma and abuse, and what are some common ways that manifests? How do they overcome that?
You know, I have a background in psychology and all that stuff, and went through my healing journey, but I say the biggest experience that I can speak from is being that individual who felt shame in their diagnosis, in what was happening to them. That was, at some point excruciating to even explain it to people. But I knew that if I didn't talk about it, if I didn't open up to those that I needed to allow trust to kind of resurface in those relationships, I knew that I was going to drown alone. And I got diagnosed with panic attack disorder. And for those who may not know what panic attack disorder, this is not just that you're occasionally getting a panic attack. It means that you have a condition that's promoting panic attacks very, like, every day, every week. It's chronic. And I knew about panic attacks, but I didn't know that there was a panic attack disorder, along with depression, anxiety. And I hit this big wall in my life. And the reason why I hit that wall is because there was shame in saying that I was struggling. I kept a lot of my symptoms hidden for a long time. And by doing so, they actually became normalized behaviors. Like going to work, having a mini anxiety attack every day that you get in the car to go to a job that you dread. Having high anxiety where you're short on breath, and you're going and you're driving there and you're thinking something bad is going to happen today. Right. And that's every day of your life. That was actually normalized for me at one point.
Oh, I relate to this so much.
And you think about it, you're like, how ridiculous. But no, this is how our body sometimes wires through trauma and through our relationships and the dynamic in those relationships. There's so much that we're conceptualizing from birth, and it becomes so integrated in us. And these things that shouldn't be or are not healthy or are toxic are normalized. And then our bodies know how to speak to us. And they've been screaming for so long, and you get to a point where you are not picking up on those signs, you will crash. Yeah. All of you will crash. So, but shame is, I call it the devil's playground. It becomes a mind game with the purpose of keeping you stuck. And that's where I was at. And so, to me, its nature is evil. Shame's nature is evil. And I think people think that we couldn't be convicted if we didn't have shame, right? There are things that are done in the world that are awful, and there should be like a level of shame, right?
Right.
And I refuse to mention those things, but we have the imagination, unfortunately, to think about what some of those will look like, right?
Right.
But when it happens to those who are essentially good or are a victim of their circumstances, it's almost another way to re-experience the abuse.
Yeah.
By living in that shame. And it's so, it results in a cycle of almost gaslighting yourself, and you're brainwashed to just accept that shame as your reality. And this is why it becomes so easy for abusers to be able to continue manipulating people.
Yeah.
Even spiritually, something that I've learned early on as a Christian is that the devil uses shame to keep you stuck.
Yeah.
So for those who welcome, this belief, right, that there's an enemy at hand here spiritually, even that I've learning early on biblically, and so that's why I always say it's evil. And I think people really forget that brainwashing is a real thing, and it takes deep rewiring in the way that we're conceptualizing our experiences to really undo the damage. I just how do we expect people to easily snap out of a mental reality that they've been living for years? It's become their new truth, their familiarity, and this can really expand on how we consider trauma.
Right.
And when we, I think, go with that understanding, I think that we're able to have a more compassionate heart towards those that are struggling in shame, but are true victims.
Right. Yeah, I know that was played a huge role in mine, just you mentioning the panic attack disorder. I didn't get diagnosed with that, but that's kind of what I was dealing with, the daily panic attacks. Going to work actually was when they manifested. I would get in the car and I'd drive and actually make it all the way to like my client's neighborhood, and I could not get myself to go in. I would just sit in my car and have a full meltdown. And it was the shame of everything, of the trauma and not having seen a therapist and not wanting to see a therapist because I was ashamed of the things I'd been through. It wasn't until I started having those panic attacks that I finally had to push myself to go see a psychiatrist and then a therapist. So that shame can really hold people back from even getting the help that they need to get.
Yeah, and talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, try talking to a loved one about this. You don't always get the reaction that you would expect. And that creates hurt. That creates a trigger to want to just go back into that little cave and keep it to yourself. But being insulated is just as bad as shame. We're not meant to heal by ourselves. We're meant to heal in community. And so it's important we find a space where we can do that. Yeah,
that sense of community is incredibly important. I've really been stressing that lately. I think it's extremely underrated how much our society and our community impacts us and how vital it is. So in your opinion, speaking of society, how do you feel like society typically reacts to people who have experienced trauma or abuse? And are there common like stigmas that survivors face? How do you feel like we can move past that?
I think we live in a society where we have lost the balance between liberalism and legalism. We have a hard time meeting somewhere in the middle. And we're either encountering a group of people who are sold to the subsiding that's taking place when we think about mental health, because there's a whole market for it. And then you have those who continue to push these old ideologies that people should get over it and this value a diagnose of a person who's recovering from burnout or trauma, or saying, hey, you know what? This thing that happened to me as a child came up in therapy and it seems like it's really affected me. And I just want to talk through it. Oh, really? You know, you get like those just brush off remarks. And sometimes we have to remember that we're also getting it from people who haven't had the opportunity, let's just say that, to do the work that you're doing. And it's really difficult when you're the one that feels hurt to have the same compassion you wish that person has on you, on them.
Right.
And I think that was one of the biggest struggles that I saw, and people carrying these misconceptions and then being the receiver of that when I was struggling. So I think understanding these extremes and how to get closer to the middle is key. People need help. And for those who carry the integrity and the ethics to be of support, right? Meaning just people that have a preparation to be able to deal with trauma. This is in every way, and you need people trained in the field. This doesn't mean, right, like we can look at holistic help options. Like I said, I believe in the healers in the world. But sometimes you do have to see the person who has earned their expertise.
Right.
Because this is a serious issue. And then you tie that along with other holistic methods. That's totally fine, right? Like when I was seeing a therapist, I didn't go into medication. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I tried CBD and I tried lavender and I tried all these teas and I tried marijuana, like all these things to help me cope. And I will hear it. I will hear it from the expert. It's going to be a harder process by just doing therapy and these holistic things, right? Some medications are meant to regulate. That was my choice, though. And everybody has to really look at what's best for them, right? Because our circumstances are different. Our call in life is different. And sometimes medications do help a lot of people.
Yeah. So it's finding that balance.
Right. So as a coach, for example, I'm very clear that I do not provide therapy. It's not ethical.
Right.
I'm not going to help you resolve, this diagnosis of bipolar. But what I will help you do is navigate through that very real fact in your life. You have ADHD. I don't test you for it. I don't diagnose you for it, but I do understand. I am trauma informed, right? I am diagnosis informed, where I can help you navigate understanding that is a challenge in your life.
Right.
So I am very clear on my stand as a coach and how I help those people that might be neurodivergent or may have other diagnoses that get in the way, but we're not treating that. We're helping you move forward with that. That's why I believe that the combination of a coach and a therapist are so important. And sure, see the opinions of other healers. But when we're talking about serious trauma and needing to get clarity on a diagnosis, I highly recommend it, even though I am a believer of holistic health.
Right. Yeah, 'cause sometimes that treatment, that official diagnosis is definitely needed to even move forward.
Right.
I've seen, I've seen, especially recently, that definitely it's a person-to-person basis. Every person, different things work on different levels for different people. But the combination of the holistic with mental health professionals is, I feel like, really beneficial. And I really encourage, and I think that's kind of what you're saying too, is like, try both. Like, see what works best for you. Don't shut out the opportunity to see a therapist if you have this deeper thing, and trauma is deep. So you definitely need those professionals for that.
And I know firsthand the disappointment that the medical field is at times. It does fail people, but many systems do as well, because they're ran by people. So, but within those industries, there are people who are equipped, who are helping people, and it may take a little bit more researching, but even us, we're part of a Girl Boss group, and I have met tremendous therapists out there that honestly have availability as we currently speak.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're out there.
meaning that they're out there willing to help.
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah. The system can be flawed sometimes because, like you said, it's run by people and people are flawed, but there are good ones out there. You just got to look for them.
And this is why all our institutes are so imperfect,
Yeah.
The other part of this is that we're responsible with dealing with our trauma and mental health. This is not about victim blaming, but how long do we enable others to stay in that discomfort, in that place of shame, and that place, most importantly, of limitation? When we know that healing can take place and this person can have a second chance at life, this concept doesn't have to contradict the victim's suffering. It can coexist.
Exactly.
With that understanding. And that this person needs change and needs to support, right? With a sense of urgency, because this is their life.
Right.
Every minute that they're stuck in that shame, they're losing out on opportunities to live in a fulfilled life.
Absolutely.
And so I think as a community, we're not to enable people to stay stuck. And that doesn't take away from us being empathetic and, most importantly, compassionate.
Yeah.
Because we can feel empathy, but compassion is a practice.
Yes.
So let's be compassionate about people not staying stuck in their pain.
Yeah. No, because we want them to heal. I was saying that exact sentiment the other day. You are not at fault for what has been done to you, but you are responsible for where you go now. Whether or not you heal and how you heal, that is your responsibility. I empathize with you, obviously, because you were harmed or you were hurt. I've been there myself, but I don't wish someone who has been a victim to stay stagnant in that. I want them to become a survivor.
Yeah.
So for survivors who may be listening to the podcast and struggling with that feeling of shame, what practical advice or strategies would you offer them to cope with and eventually overcome those emotions?
There's a few things. And this might seem like not what everybody wants to hear, or maybe even triggering. Because again, it's not about victim blaming, but how do you play the cards you've been handed so that you can still thrive in life? Focus on what the pain can do more so than the shame. Shame is a waste of time. It is literally like sitting in a rocking chair, while you're battling with thoughts going back and forth, shoulda, woulda, coulda, mental war. Life is just continuing to slip away from us. And so one of the biggest advocacies that we can have for ourselves is to not let shame drown us and use our pain to mold us. So how can my pain serve me? That's a really hard question to ask.
Oh, yeah.
But I got to a point in my life where I said, how does my diagnosis serve me? Well, my pain has served me in finding my calling.
Right.
It served me in finding true love. It served me in leaving a toxic job. It served me in leaving a toxic environment behind. And you know what? As I progress in managing the pain and all the things that I've been able to use it to mold me, sometimes the pain is still there.
Right.
But it gets better, especially when you are committed to yourself and to that journey, to use tools that can really help you during this walk. Pain may linger for longer than we want to, but it doesn't have to be a guest at your table.
Right.
Let it serve you.
Yeah.
And so, mhm.
I love that like you took it, and instead of staying in that survivor, that victim mindset and just saying like, oh, this is terrible thing that's happened to me, and just kind of staying and wallowing in that, you were like you literally just said, how does it serve me? And I feel like where you've taken it and the career path that you've chosen is perfect, because you're not just saying it to people, you're actually modeling it to them. You're like, look, I've done it.
Thank you, Katelyn, for acknowledging that. But because even me, as I was speaking, about it just, I saw it in my mind, right? How that is so true. I found my calling because of my pain. And there's a weird irony in that gratitude for also my adversity.
Right.
But what I would add to that is, don't let shame lead your decisions. This is why people avoid therapy. Right. This is why they avoid coaching, other healing process for years. The immense amount of people that I encounter that I know I can help them, but if they don't see it, because they're not ready to face that monster, that elephant in the room, you can pay for it now, or you can pay a lot more later.
Yeah.
So, do you want to keep increasing that debt? So, and get practical. Identify those that you can trust. I know you don't feel like you have anybody. I understand. But if you don't have anyone, then find a professional that you can start that walk with.
Right.
And sometimes, again, radical statement, sometimes you have to give your trust in order to understand if that person is worthy of it or not.
Yeah.
How are you going to know?
Start. Yeah. You just have to take that step. It might be hard, but you have to.
You got to let somebody in. Again, we heal in community. We heal in community. Why? Because we are each other's mirrors.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I was in
it. When you don't have the right angle on you, the other person does at times. So who are those who are staying consistent? Give them a chance. Have boundaries, right? You fool me once, shame on me. You fool me twice, shame on you, right? Or is it the other way around? Shame on you. And then
I knew what you meant.
Second time was shame on me, right? So have your boundaries.
Yeah.
But let people in.
Yeah.
Because we heal in community. And so, just remember that things happen the way that, sometimes things happen not in the way that we want them to, or that the way that we think that they look like. And when you're really committed to your healing journey, and part of that is shame and other things that come along with that, grieving and, changing mindsets and awareness and all the things, don't get trapped in that microwave mentality where we expect things to just be instantly changed and done. Nobody's ever gone on a diet and lost 50 pounds the next day.
That instant gratification our society loves so much.
Yeah, make it make sense. Make it make sense. Like something that didn't start overnight, you want it to be result overnight.
It doesn't work like that.
It just doesn't work like that. This is why people are in therapy sometimes 10, 13 years, and you see them thriving. And sometimes you don't know that they've been seeing someone off and on for all these years. Oh, they've had a coach for 20 years.
Sometimes that's needed.
Do what you need to do in order for you to live your very best life, because it is calling you.
I love it. I do want to take the time to not only thank you, but allow you to plug any way that people can reach out to you if they wish. Because I think what you're offering is just amazing.
Thank you. Yes. So again, for those who feel lost, disconnected, not just only to their career or their business, but to their dreams, you feel this sense of urgency that you're being called elsewhere. And every time you go into your space of work, you feel this dread. I can help you resolve that through the self-discovery process that you and I will work on. And a great way of reaching me is literally texting me or calling me at 727-293-1194, or finding me on Instagram. You get access to content, you get my link to my website, and you get my link also to my podcast, The Socialistic Approach. And it's at life_coach_career.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm like blushing on this side because this is just a powerful conversation.
Well, I know that you've helped me. I love your point of views, and I know that you can help somebody else out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for tuning in to Healing Echoes. I hope you found our discussions both insightful and inspiring. Please consider supporting us by subscribing and or leaving a review. Remember that your journey to recovery is a personal echo, unique to you, and filled with the power of transformation. Stay tuned for more episodes, and until then, keep healing, keep growing, and keep sharing your own healing echoes with the world. This is Katelyn, signing off.